Hello and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club with 4 race starts. We're going to start with our Category 4 riders, then 3, 2 and 1. Our riders lined up in yellow, that is our Category 1 riders. In green, our Category 2. In blue, Category 3 and Category 4. Look at this, a response coming from Ella Vink here. They are coming in to the 11k marker. So they are fast approaching third race distance. All of a sudden, there's going to be riders going in all different directions. 1 or 2 will lose their heads on the way through. Some of them won't make it out the other side where they want to be or in one piece. But the smart will be able to survive and use this to their advantage.
Dantico and Fioroni used to battling each other. They've got Higuita in here as well as Barco Ossa. They are continuing to push, but Barco Ossa is kicking. She's kicking at 7.8 and Tico is coming behind. But I think it's going to be Barco Ossa takes that. Quintero has kicked again. Quintero has pushed up. She's got 100 meters to go. She's going to come round this left-hand bend and see the finish line. Quintero is going to take it. Agudelo Areas is taking us into the finish line. Manuela Sanchez is in too. But Agudelo Areas is pushing hard and she is going to be your winner today.
But it is going to be Diane Grace Burnett, your Category 4 winner in our finals, and she's going to be the first rider. What a win today! Hello and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club with me, Matt Payne.
And me, Emma Martin.
And I'm going to start off by saying, do you know something? I really love Sundays. Do you know why I really love Sundays? Because it's Sunday Race Club. Because we get to talk about some great racing on MyWhoosh. Really, really makes my morning. I get up and bounce out of bed. Emma, do you bounce out of bed in the morning when you've got Sunday Race Club, or is it a slower process?
I'm afraid I always need a coffee first thing on a Sunday morning, and I've had 3 today, so I am seriously looking forward to some racing. Well, today we are heading to Australia. It is qualifier number 1 in June, and we are heading to the outer loop. Now, this is an interesting race course because, as you can see, we have a flat start and a rolling section. So 35 kilometers of racing, 593 meters of climbing, and that's one main Category 2 climb that comes pretty much halfway into the race today. So last time we were here, we had a winning time of 62 minutes with a 6-up sprint into that finish. Now, if the riders today can get over that Category 2 climb in a pack, I'm sure we're going to see a fast and furious finish as well today.
And this is a really different course, isn't it? Because of this central climb right the way up. It's not the steepest, it's not the longest, but that step in it really does change the profile. I think this is one of our really good courses.
Yeah, that climb, that Category 2 climb. So indeed, 5.45 kilometers with an average gradient of 7.4, which is pretty steep in its own right. However, it is a step climb and there are some very steep sections on this climb today. It will top 12%, particularly at the top.
I like it. It's 12%, particularly at the top. There's kind of like the top is the top. Let's get down to the racing. Enough of my frivolity. This time in the morning here in our studios here. But I'm sure you're going to be all around the world in all different time zones. But the time is ticking and it's time to take a look at our riders. You can see we've got Category 1 in yellow, 2 in green, 3 in blue, and Category 4, the first of our starters, in red. And it's a cracking race field, and this race field in Category 4 has produced some amazing racing, and it's a field that's getting bigger.
Yeah, it is indeed. And interestingly, throughout May, it was Category 3, Category 2, and Category 4 who were the first riders over the line. It's going to be interesting to see whether Category 1 can top those today. But 18 riders on the start sheets today, and Barco Ossa is here, Salazar, Burnett, who rode phenomenally last month, Dalasay and Vink, as well as Tanglian, De Freitas, Sarasuk, Giraldo. It's a big Category 4 field today, and I think it's going to give us some really good racing.
I think one of the key things for me is about getting that run on, knowing who's around you, knowing who's racing with you. So let's see who's done their homework, who's done their riding on MyWhoosh. Our riders line up ready to go in Category 4. The first of our categories away on qualifier number 1 on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. And away we go. So racing underway in June here on MyWhoosh. And as you can see, this pack starting to move out from the pens. They go across the boardwalk, and then we're going to turn on to the course proper, the outer loop part of the expansion across into the different parts of the racing that we're using now on MyWhoosh in Australia. Some amazing graphics as well to help. And if you remember from last time, this is the tough little start. We come around this right-hand turn. We're going to hit the climb. And this is a really critical little step. It's not a categorized climb, though, is it, Emma? It's just nasty.
I know, I agree. It is just nasty, and it does come fairly early on into the course today. So just under half a kilometre under the wheels, and there's this steep little kicker. And you can see it's already doing some damage to the pack, and that's because Ella Vink knows it's coming. And Vink is absolutely on the ball this morning. An intention laid in June. She's ensuring this pack is really ready to go.
Indeed, I'm not quite sure where Ella Vink is, whether she's in this morning, this afternoon, or this evening.
Well, I was going to say she's on the other side of the world, isn't she, to us?
Yeah, it's probably like last thing at night where Ella is if she's out and riding. But that's the great thing about MyWhoosh, and look at the action already. We've got a strung out pack here in Category 4. Tanya Howell moving up into the front. One of our riders from Germany here, just squeezing on, just putting the pressure on, followed by 2 Italians behind. However, you can see the group reforming, and it is a really early stage. It's okay to stretch your legs, but I think if you put in something like a breakaway here, I mean, that's almost kilometre zero, isn't it? That's like the suicide break that you see in the Grand Tour. It's great for publicity. It's bad for your legs and actually for your chances of surviving at the end in a top 5 finishing position, which of course is where the prize money is.
Yeah, absolutely. And 7 riders in this category finished in a top 5 position in May. But one of the things I'm really pleased to see, Matt, is that this category, Category 4, is getting bigger and bigger. So 18 riders on the start sheets today. You know, this was a fairly recent introduction, going to 4 categories from 3 categories. And it's great to see new riders joining this category in June.
And remember, you get into those categories, everybody comes into Category 1, so that we don't get people who are a professional rider diving in on 4 and then working their way up and sweeping all the prizes up on the way through. They go into 1, and then you will find yourself basically being allocated into a category that suits your ability, and hopefully going to give you some great racing in amongst your peers and against people who are going to give you a really competitive race. And that is really, really key. So great to see our riders up and racing. 3 minutes of racing in, 1.5 kilometers covered already. Good high average speed already, to say that we've just come over that bump on that climb out in the dip, and now we're on the roll across. 1 or 2 riders just drifting off the back, and that is a tactic, isn't it? Just have a little bit of a roll off the back, a little bit of a stretch back onto the group. It can be a bit dangerous though, because you don't want to do that when there's going to be an attack, but the terrain today, you should have a chance of coming back in.
Well, absolutely. And some riders like to start a lot faster than others. And we often see some riders almost sprinting off the start line to get their legs absolutely wound up. And other riders with a more sedate and steady pace off that start line, with the assumption that the group will come back together. And indeed, the group has all come back together in Category 4.
So let's move from Category 4 on the right of your screen to Category 3 on the left of your screen. They're the riders in blue. They're our next riders to set off from our pens here in Wollongong in Australia. And another big field of riders, Emma.
Yeah, absolutely. So 19 riders on the start sheets today in category three. Ribaldo, Molina, Carmona, Montoya, Hadlock is here, Mabin, Walkenhorst, Acevedo, Jose Zabala. Now, category three was a really interesting category in May. 11 riders across the top five, and we saw quite a lot of movement from category three into category two. So, really opening up the field.
Yeah, really did promote some very different racing, but it was really good to see how that racing came out. And I think category three now is going to be even tougher, even though it's maybe shrunk a little bit. So, category three riders, the second of our four categories, they're lined up and all ready to go.
So we're in with Pelagio down in the start pen as the seconds tick down on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. This is qualifier race number 1 in June, and our category 3 women are away. So as the riders sweep out of the start pen and they cross the boardwalk and head into town, there's a push on the front here, but the pace is much steadier now than it was on the category 4 start. So around 2.8 watts per kilo coming out on the front there, and this pack all rolling out together. No stretching of this field, and it's Manolin Pablo who's on the front of the pack at the moment as they sweep onto the downhill before they come to that first little kicker. Now that first little kicker does top 7%, but it is just the first bump in the road to stretch our riders' legs today.
So this pack a little bit more together, I think, at this stage, just rolling out, but the pace still pretty hot coming in. This fiery banner, the red going down to the yellow at the base, the indicator at the start of this little climb that kicks us out and away. Really, really interesting to watch how people react to this, watching a heart rate, which you can see top left-hand side. Remember, top left-hand side of your screen is the rider data. Things like watts, heart rate, cadence, time, distance, speed. Essential for the rider. Top right hand side. That's where we are on the course. That's the data about whereabouts, what we're facing. So where are our riders on that sat nav view? What's the gradient in that orange box? Going over 4% now. What have we got in front? Well, that's to the right of that little green arrow that's in there. And how far along the course are we? Well, the depressing news for the riders, or maybe the good news for the riders, depending on whether they want to have plenty of race distance left, is we're currently approaching 1 kilometre, and that yellow bar starting to just show as it moves its away from left to right. Of course, on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that is the indicator of the seconds and of the power. It's really quick indicator in terms of our riders and how that they are working. So we're in with Julia Walkenhurst. She's highlighted in purple. You'll see that the riders go in red, in yellow. That is when they're pushing down on the wads, quite literally going into the red zone and starting to lift their pace. And of course, that also gives us the time indication as well as their watts per kilo. So really quick indicator of who's immediately around the rider that we are watching.
Well, the stretch on this little kicker, Matt, has created a bit of a gap in this group. I'm anticipating it to come back together again, but we are now seeing two groups, and we're seeing a group of riders try and make the transition across back to group one, which is leaving one or two riders just in no man's land off the back of the group at the moment. So Montoya there pushing through and coming into the group, in fact, snowballing right over the group there. Now, what is interesting is we've got quite a long transition section after this first little kicker, because the next main feature our riders will see is the underwater tunnel section.
Well, that's going to be really interesting to see how they deal with that. This is category 3, the second of our 4 categories out onto the course. Remember, we have category 4. They are currently at 4.25k, 1.7k in. Our category 3, our next group ready to go, are going to be category number 2. And category 2, now that the time is ticking about 1.5 minutes to their start time, and they're down in our pens waiting. You see them top right hand side of your screen in that green jersey. The last riders to go will be category 1 in yellow. They're on the top left hand side of your screen.
Now, interesting to see, Matt, the category 4 riders all in one pack together at the moment as they approach the 4.5 kilometre mark. Our category 3 riders up and over and down the other side of that first kicker, looking like they too are now in a tight pack.
So 2 packs together. What will our Category 2 riders do today? Another stacked field here. Very competitive. Bigger than Categories 3 and 4, I think, Emma.
Yeah, well, this is the most competitive field, I think, at the moment, Matt, because in May, 13 riders in the top 5. Now, that's a phenomenal number of riders taking prize money in this category, but really emphasises the movement we saw in May from Category 3 to Category 2 and from Category 2 to Category 1. So, Sinelli is here today, so is Antico, Berio, Cerna, Parrot, Reynard, Koinstonen, Olsen, Ochoa, Manshandi, Hermassen, Cabanatan. It is a stacked field in Category 2 today. And I think this is really going to be one to watch because I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and I am going to bet this Category 2 race is a sprint finish.
Well, let's see how our riders do this. Category 2, the penultimate category, away on qualifier number 1 here in June on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. And that's Green Train heading out faster than the Flying Scotsman down the northeast line, setting speed records because this is a nice, quick start here. Now, I've just seen 36 kilometres, 38 kilometres per hour coming out from our riders. And this is what we want to see. But who is going to open the throttle and put the coal on the fire as they come up? Are we going to see one person kicking off? Well, no surprise to see Antico and Sinelli right up in the mix at the front here with Barragan as well. So it already looks to me like people not wanting to get left behind. We have got a gap forming and it looks like at least one rider just a little bit of slow out of the blocks there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one rider just being distanced at the moment there, and you can see them just in the background there. Now the pack moving and moving strongly at 3 watts per kilo. So it's not a really high pace, but it is a steady pace for our Category 2 riders and the group, ensuring that they maintain that constant pace as they move into this kicker off of the start line. So now onto the rise at 4.4% on this climb at the moment, and this group now stretching, and you can see that stretch on the top right hand corner of your screen, that sat nav picture really giving an indication of what is happening to the pack, because it's Antico and Angie Parrott who are on the front driving it.
Do you know something? If I'd have asked you to predict who would be on the front on the first climb, early doors,
Angie Parrott.
And
she drives a strong train.
Yeah, and Alicia Antico, the 2 people who we could almost guarantee are going to go on the attack. One of these days, they're going to wait and keep us completely guessing, but not today. And do you know what? You can see the numbers coming in red, answering that attack.
They're needing to, because this is the most damage being done to any pack of riders at the start pen today, because this has absolutely decimated this Category 2 group. We've got a group on the front, we've got a gap back to 1 or 2 riders, and then we've got another gap back that is extending at the moment now, this leading packer on the downhill, to a 3rd group on the road.
And as you go over the top, remember the pace will pick up, the speed will pick up, the physical distance. The distance between the riders will extend, even though the time gap may be exactly the same. And that means that it's harder to get in the draft, to hide away, to stay out of the wind, and you end up basically having to use less effort if you're in that draft. Whereas if you're behind and that gap opens, it's going to take you longer to get into that pocket to hide out of the way. Now, Category 2 currently at 1.5 kilometers, well on the way down the course at the moment. They are chasing Category 3. Remember, the prizes are discrete, so they are per category. There's no prize, although there is bragging rights for being the first rider up and over the line. It's always somebody who we love to call. But key thing to remember, prizes are per category. So the riders are making their way on the way round the course. 3 minutes covered on the clock, and 1.88k covered for Category 2. We've got 8.5 minutes nearly, and nearly 4.5k for Category 3. Category 4, the first down the road at the moment, well and truly moving. They are currently at what is nearly 7 kilometers, and that's going to be the head start. It's going to be probably nearer 8 by the time we get our riders away in Category 1, who are our final category of riders to go. Category 1, of course, is the cream of the crop. They are the fastest riders in theory, and of course, where all our new riders go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't be surprised to see a stretch and a break on the group early on, because those new riders may well be allocated to a different category at a later date. So category 1 today, 38 riders on the start sheets today, a total start list today of 97 riders across all 4 categories. So a strong showing for June. Now, talking about a strong showing, Daniela Marin is here today. So is Chiara Donny, Cornelia Engstrom, Catherine Marin, Malena Biarhead, Rosaria Estrada, Catherine Fua, Carolina Quevedo. There are some strong riders on this start sheet today. As we've seen in the other categories, I think we've got a really good race in all 4 categories to look forward to today.
Definitely, and I can't wait to see how Category 1 deal with this very first climb that comes so quickly into the course here on qualifier number 1.
So as the clock ticks down, we're in with Engstrom as the go takes place. This is the women's qualifier number 1 for June on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club, and category 1 is up and out of the start pen. So as the pack move out and into the city, the stretch is on the group already as they take this left-hand bend and they run across the shoreline. The pack is already stretched, and we said you would expect that in this category 1 race. As they just drop down here, they will very shortly be heading skywards as they hit that first kicker at around 7%, and I'm expecting it to break a little bit there, just as we saw in the category 2 race, where it pretty much split the field in half.
Now let's see who's going to go on the front, who is going to be the person who is wielding the big hammer and the wedge, and who is going to be on the receiving end. This is where it's really key to stay in that group. Get caught on the wrong side of a gap, and you're going to have a lot of work to come back across. So our riders really do need to be attentive. Tend to see that pace going down pretty quickly with category 1. And I was just watching the speed of these riders as they came into that climb. I saw 49 kilometers an hour from the riders coming in here, really winding it up to come in, and you can just see it strung out. There are 1 or 2 riders already being distanced, but of course we do have to remember, not only have we got new riders in the group, but we also probably going to have some riders for whom their agenda, their training program means that they're aiming to peak closer to the finals at the end of the month rather than right now in qualifying number 1, and they're here to get a qualifying ride in rather than actually setting themselves up for the win.
Absolutely, and we do see that, don't we? We see riders utilising a much more steadier approach to some of the qualifying races to ensure that they get that qualification, but not necessarily taking part in the front end of the race, because they're saving that, and as Matt indicates, peaking really for the final each month, where the team competition is absolutely as critical as the individual competition. Now, this pack hasn't split as much as we saw in category 2, because these riders had their wits about them this morning. They knew what was coming, and they stayed and thought about their positions in terms of getting up and over that first kicker here. We have seen 1 or 2 riders just distance off the back, but the group is looking still large and strong.
It is indeed, and we've over the top, we're down the bottom, we're onto the flat on the far side now. So that's all our groups over the very first challenge, which is that kicker. And because of where it comes, mountains are categorized by how big they are, how difficult, how steep they are, but also where they come across the course in a race. So the same climb, the self-same climb, towards the end of a race would normally get a higher category. So at the start of the race, it might only be a category 3 or a category 2 climb, but at the end, after 2 or 3 other climbs, it may be considered something like a category 1 or a horse category climb. Here, we've got almost the reverse. Because it's so early, that first kicker, it makes a really big difference. And it's when our riders are not warmed up.
Well, and also it's so short. You know, it really is a kicker. It is a get out the saddle and stamp climb rather than a concerted effort like the one that's coming in the middle of this race, which is 5.45 kilometres in length with an average gradient of 7.4%. So the average gradient on the category 2 climb today is more than we saw on that short, sharp kicker at 500 metres into the race.
And of course, it's coming in at 15.3 for the start of the climb. It finishes just before 21 kilometers, so a fair way. But we have one of our key sections being traversed by the riders in category 3 and 4 at the moment, and this is our underwater tunnel section. You can see the difference between these two groups, still at about 2.5 kilometers between them, and category 4 at the moment leading the race. They've got the most distance under the wheels at just over 10k, and it's 7.5 for the riders in category 3 as they make their way through. And you can see at the moment, I think there's definitely a lot more pressure on the riders in category 4 because they've just hit the climb on the exit. And really good, if you watch the graphics, you can just see another big push going. Somebody just on the front here, just stretching their legs out. Is this going to be Vink? It's Howeiler again.
Yeah.
Tell you what, Tanya Howeiler at the moment, she is really looking like she's really up for this month's racing.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because Howeiler has been allocated to category 4 after having done May in category 1 and getting her verification. So it's really interesting to see. You know, she came from the back of the pack, Matt. She utilised the draft. Fabulous technique from Howeiler to put that attack in place. And she is riding strongly. She's at 4.5 watts per kilo. This is a big kick in category 4. And she is establishing a gap. But she's going to have a flat run-in when she gets to the top of this climb into the base of that category 2 climb. Now, she's got to be feeling strong today if she wants to put a gap into the group before the main climb.
Yeah, and it always makes sense to do it the most efficient way because it's all saving energy. When you burn watts, when you burn that energy, that fuel, it's gone. And by using that to roll through the pack, she's making the most efficient use of the pack. It's there, you might as well use it. She's used it to great effect and she's gone clear at the front. And that gap, Emma, is substantial. 15 seconds, nearly 20 seconds, and based on that attack coming out here. And this, remember, we're not onto the main climb, but this could be indicative of what she's going to show us when we hit that big climb.
Well, she's pushing on strongly, and there is a concerted effort coming from behind, but they've backed off a little bit now because that is a huge attack from Howeiler. You know, she really has laid an intention, and I think the group are now going, do you know what, I'm not sure we really need to push on and chase her now because we've got that climb, and can she stay out alone? And I think that's what they're thinking at the moment. As we take a little look into category 2, and there's some action there as well. You can see the stretch on this group, and this is the run into the underwater section. So there's a slight rise here, which Parrott is making the most of with Barragan and Sinelli before they drop down into those tunnels.
And you can see that profile on the right-hand side, top right-hand side of your screen, that white line indicating what's coming up. It moves from right to left past the small green arrow, that pointer, the indicator of where the riders are. They are on the way into that dip. You can see, though, that category 1 are shifting today. And one of the reasons you can tell that is because you can already see the rise before the dip on this profile on the top right hand side of category 1, and you can see that rise up before the fall down into the base. Now these riders are moving quite quickly. Still another push, and we'll see just how they're going. We just got a little bit of a push off the front and then a drop back there. We're just riding in with Maria Marin, and Maria put in some great rides in last month in May.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen some really strong riding throughout May in category 1, and some very different courses. We've had hilltop finishes, we've had sprint finishes. Indeed, the course we are on today was indeed qualifier 2 in May. And that indeed in category 1 was a 6-up sprint for the finish. So looking forward to seeing some really strong action today from this group. And it is indeed Maria Marin who we are in with at the moment. But this is a tight group, and it's still a large bunch in this category 1 race as they are approaching the 5-kilometer marker. So Barco is here, Biarhead, Morales, Embring, Jose Valdez is in here, so is Engstrom, so is Fua. Tejeros is here as well. And for those of you who have been watching the Sunday Race Club for some time, you will be noting that some of our strong category 2 riders who have dominated that category are now here in category 1.
So the riders just making their way through sprint number 1. You can see the leaderboard headed by all category 1. In terms of timings on the way through, The Category 4 riders are slower than Category 3, but 3 and 2 are mixed together. They're very similar times. We've got about 22, 23 riders, I think, in Category 1 who've made their way in through that section pretty much together, but the time gap's not huge, and Category 2 moving almost as fast as Category 1 and Category 3 also working well. Category 4 have been pretty aggressive too, and they are right up there in terms of timing. So there's very little separating the groups in terms of that short section in terms of time. The group's riding through using the dynamics together. We're in with Category 3. It's Maria Kimona at the moment, who is on her way up the climb in the lead. She's got Roberto Walkenhurst, Melina Montoya, Mabin and Botero behind. Roberto quickly responding here. And Roberto, a rider who's been very strong, had some great rides earlier on, and a rider who we know is going to be aggressive during the racing.
Oh, and a rider who we know can finish in the top 5. You know, she is an absolutely strong rider in Category 3. You know, in Qualifier 2 last month when we were in Australia, so on this particular course, she finished second to Quintero. So this is Ribaldo's type of course, you know.
And she was been in there in February and in all
Absolutely.
the way. She's a regular contender and regularly out racing. And that's what's great, isn't it? That there's people who are able to racing against your peers, racing in the competitive race environment brings you on so much. It's that extra little bit that you find when you're racing, and riders just improve because of it.
They do indeed, and one of the key things about Sunday Race Club with these 4 race categories is there is a race for everybody. The field that you are allocated to is strong racing because everybody is of a pretty much same standard, and that is what is core to these 4 categories.
Well, let's see who is of standard, who's above standard as we come into the climb. You can just see we're running along the flat here, 0%, but we're going to come around this left-hand bend and the gradient will start to increase. This is the kick out, so the riders will know that they're going to need to be ready to respond if there's a bit of pressure being put on. And Tico already moving to the front at 3 watts per kilo, looking to stretch this out. Now Quintero comes up there. You can just see the group are coming through and they are pushing. Looks like Hermansen, Olsen in here. It looks like Dega Mashandi, Litton, Koistonen in here, Cavanassin, Ochoa, Real Who's Who, and now they're starting to come in. There's a slight dip. You could just see it went to minus 0.5. And that little dip into the kick is going to be really telling. Wow. Meanwhile, look at this. Tanya Howeiler, we said she really wanted this and this was going to be indicative. She's at 13.8k. She's absolutely flying.
Yeah, she is indeed. So she's pushed on and she's now got a 27-second gap back to the chasing group, and I think the tactics from the chasing group, Matt, are indeed to wait until this Category 2 climb. So Howeiler is going to take a just shy of a 30-second lead into this Category 2 climb, but she's still got a little way to go. She's got about 1.5 kilometers till she hits the base of that climb, but you can see it there looming on the top right hand corner of your screen as it's Diane Grace Burnett who is leading the chase now, and she really is starting to pick up the pace.
She is. She's just in front. It's 2 seconds back to the pack. That's got Bulgarian, Geraldo, Salazar, Giuliano, Catania, Vink, all in that chaser pack. So 2 riders clear, but the response is coming. But it's a fractured response, and you can see that with the riders just breaking clear in 1s and 2s. This is Bulgarian at the moment, who's just on the front now. Doesn't want to let a big enough group at the front to go to put it clear. And remember, this profile coming into the climb is key, because where we come into it, if you are on the wrong side of a break going over the top, you're going to be in trouble. You're not likely to get back. The biggest group on the road is generally the fastest group on the road on the descent from the mountain and then heading in to our finish. You want to be in the front, and you want to also have the biggest group of riders. That is not necessarily the easiest. You don't want it to be huge, but you want it to have more than anyone else. So if they're in 1s and 2s behind you, you can have the group of 3. You've still got the biggest group. If they're in 3s and 4s, you need to have a 5 or 6 at the front, and so on. So really interesting to see how the riders try and engineer that to happen. Category 1 and 2, well, they are still down in our tunnels. Category 1 just descending in. Category 2, though, nicely onto this climb. We saw them on the approach. Still one big group. I think they're shedding bodies out of the back rather than necessarily going and putting people out of the front. The group are just about holding together at the moment.
Yeah, they are indeed. So around 15 riders in that Category 2 pack. The Category 1 pack is even bigger, but they have indeed picked up a Category 2 rider. So that rider now sat in the group and riding with that Category 1 pack. And we're seeing a little bit of a stretch on the right-hand side of your screen in the Category 2 pack, and that's Lisa Hermansen and Angie Parrott, who are just stretching their legs there and encouraging the group to push on a little. So Hermansen and Parrott just 1 or 2 seconds, but it's Alicia and Tico who is leading the charge from behind with Barragan. So I don't think that's going to stick, unlike the attack in Category 4.
So at the moment, you can just see a regroup now coming back together again. They've responded. They've not let anybody go. So in Category 4, we saw Ho while ago clear. She's still got that gap, but everybody responding. You can see that mass of colour in yellow and in red, indicating that the watts are going up and people are digging in deep. On the left of your screen, on the right-hand side of your screen, this is that chasing group behind Ho Weiler. And you can see they've pulled back Paul Garin. Paul Garin brought back into the fold, which leaves a solo leader up the road. They're just coming over the elevated stone bridge, and they're in towards the climb. It's not long till they hit the first of those slopes. Meanwhile, it's a little further back for Category 2, and this has almost all come back together again. We're just in with Angie Parrott just being brought back in to the fold. And that dig over the climb, well, it has elicited a response from everybody here. Really interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's Ruiz and Litton that look to be the ones who have missed the break there, particularly Brittany Litton and Milena Ruiz, the 2 riders who have been dropped off the back of this Category 2 pack as they climbed out of the tunnel.
So just distancing riders on the way through. And we've got to remember, of course, that riders have different skills and different abilities. It could be that you are great on the flat sections. You can really set a high pace, but when it hits a climb, you might struggle. The reverse is true as well. Some people are great on the climbs, but really struggle when the pace goes high on the flat or the downhills. And of course, that's with such variety of courses and terrains. And there's quite a lot of different styles of riding here in this particular course on the outer loop. It can make a big difference, and it'll change how that race progresses. Now, Category 2, left-hand side of your screen. Category 3, right-hand side of your screen. Category 3, starting to head towards the mountains, starting to head out of town. And they'll be making the way. They're currently at 14 kilometers. The climb coming in at just over 15k, but they're not far away from where we start to get those undulations. It starts to get a little bit bumpy. Category 4, they're well on the way in to the climb already, and of course there are leaders on the road, but they're being chased here by Category 3. Rabaudo right up there, and this is where you set yourself up, isn't it? I mean,
Wow.
You're looking at that first riser into the climb. Remember, it's pretty steep, this first kicker, isn't it?
It is indeed, but this is Rabaudo, I think, laying some intention clear. She obviously enjoyed this course last time, and the first kicker goes up to around 10%. Now, it isn't the steepest kicker on this climb. That comes towards the finish of the climb, right at the very top. It tops 12% and even makes it close to 16% in the very, very final stages before they go over the brow. But Rabaudo here, utilising this flatter section of the early part of the run into the climb to start to push this group and push this group with intention.
Yeah, 4.5 watts per kilo consistently coming out of Rabaudo. She's put a little bit of a gap in. She's waiting to see who responds. Patero kicking up to 5 watts per kilo, not wanting to let that gap go on the way into the climb. But you can see that course profile really ramps up once they come round this left-hand turn. It'll start going skywards, and that is when the riders who can climb really should come to the fore. The first kicker is the time particularly if you're a good climber, that you can put an attack in. If you're really good at getting out the saddle and running a high rev rather than churning a big gear, it's a great place to put in some serious pain into everybody else's legs. Now, that's category 3. They're at that point, they're heading into the first step. You can see category 4 up the road. They're currently 1.5 kilometers further into the ascent, and they're still onto this first big major step. They are into the red in terms of the gradient. They're into the red in terms of digging deep and responding here. We're at 9.5%, heading for 10% at the moment, and now ticking over 10% in category 4.
And
big climb.
Yeah, but take a look. They've pulled Hoyweller back, and the tactics that they utilised to chase her down and wait until the climb absolutely has worked for them today, because they've not burnt their matches chasing her out of those tunnels, but they have indeed caught her on the early stages of this climb. Now, this is a really interesting race today because there's 14.25 kilometres from the top of this category 2 climb to the finish line, and that is mainly downhill and flat. So you have to put in a huge gap, I think, on the chase pack on this climb, and you have to know that you can do that to push on this climb, because otherwise the tactic I would be using today is just to sit on a wheel.
Yeah, sit on a wheel, hold that wheel and keep not keep the group together, but be comfy all the way up.
Yeah, I would be saving my efforts for what will potentially be a sprint finish, and unless you see a really big attack go off the front, then you know it can be held. I would just be shadowing the first 1 or 2 or 3 riders in the group, and I would just be sitting on the wheel and digging in to hold it.
And that could potentially, though, give a much easier ride to a big sprinter, though, couldn't it? On the way
absolutely.
Through. So it is a risky tactic, because if you're basically letting the sprinters off when you're on a climb, you could be making life a little bit too easy for them. So it's a bit of a balance, surely.
Absolutely, there is, and you have to completely and utterly know your own skill set. You know, if you know that the climb today is the absolute place where you hold all the cards against the rest of the pack, then go for it. But the likelihood of you holding that gap to the finish line with such a long run in, you've got to be able to, you've got to have the confidence that you can put a really big gap into the group.
Well, let's see who's feeling confident and who isn't. Interested to see that we're going to have Paolo at the moment. Just going to see the category 1 riders coming up onto a good timing, though, because she's got over the climb and she's going to get caught on what is a relatively flat section. And if she can pick the pace up here, this could give her a little bit of assistance chasing the riders in front.
Well, it could do indeed, but she's not looking as though she's picking that pace up enough, as then she kicks. So listening in there, Paolo, she's, or else by telepathy, she knew the right timing to kick and just to stay in that group, because this category 1 group are not moving particularly fast at the moment. So Paolo's heart rate currently at 173. I'm sure if we jumped onto one of the category 1 riders, we'd see a much lower heart rate at the moment. Bartoskaya, for example, at 2.4 watts per kilo. Sanchez at 2.3. Take a look at that. Her heart rate is 121. For a category 1 rider, this is almost recovery pace.
I wish I could recover at that pace. That would make me a very happy man indeed. You can just see the riders at the moment. Nice pickup, nice jumping in there. It's going to be smooth, and really for our riders who, when they do catch that lift, their key is stay in the pack, don't do too much, and look out for the next dig uphill, really, because that's where they're likely to find they're in trouble, or if there is an attack, because that's when the power can go up, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. In our category 2 pack now, this is the leaders in the category 2 pack, and it has been whittled down a little, so we've got a smaller group now in this category 2 pack as they approach the base of the climb, and you can see that red banner. They are just about to roll under, indicating the start of this category 2 climb today. So our category 2 leading pack now on to our category 2 climb. We are in Australia on the outer loop today for qualifier race number 1 in June on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club.
Can I just say, Emma, as we head into the climb, a little break in the racing here, I absolutely love the graphics in this part of the world here. It is brilliant. I love the fact that we go from the city and that sort of almost claustrophobic environment. We come out into the woods, into this sort of more lush scenery, and I think it's probably breaking some of the stereotypes people think of in terms of Australia of being, it's so big. They all know Uluru and then, Ayers Rock as it used to be known, and they know the big desert and the central desert, and they've got images of people going walkabout. But actually, there's such a wide variety of terrains. It's such a massive country, and I think this is a great way of showcasing it and actually learning that it's not just one-dimensional. There's so much more to it, and I love the way that the graphics show us that.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be wonderful to be in that hot air balloon over the top of Australia somewhere at the moment?
It would. Well, yeah, only with a feed so that we can watch the racing.
Well, involved in the racing today is indeed these two riders who have pulled away in this Category 4 race. So Pulgarin and Bernard, two riders who are now 14 seconds clear of the chasing group on this climb. It's still fairly early on this climb at the moment, but they are continuing to ride and continuing to push on now. Bernard just the rider in two, Pulgarin the rider on the front here. Pulgarin in the white helmet, Bernard in the yellow. You can see them continuing to drive on this climb. They're holding a steady pace, and it's Salazar who is doing the chasing with Hoywiller, our early attacker. Katanan and Ferrero and Vink are all within around 22-23 seconds, but this climb already has stretched this Category 4 pack.
Where would you want to be, Emma? Do you want to be in the lead group? Do you want to be in the chase group? I would want to be in the chase group, I think
it's only around 12-13 seconds at the moment. It does depend on how much these two riders can pull clear by the time they get to the top. They're about halfway up at the moment. So I'd probably want at least 30 or 40 seconds going over the top at least.
So to summarise and give us a really short answer, basically you'd like to be in the front group but with a bit more time.
Yeah.
There we go. There we are. Short and concise, not my strong point.
But I'd probably like another rider for company, actually. I think 3 is better than 2, particularly on that long running. And but you've got to have riders who want to work with you because you've got to stay clear.
Oh, that is key, isn't it? And just looking at the Category 3 riders here, this group to me look to me like they're just, I don't want to say the word taking it easy because they're not. They're on a climb. There's some, but the heart rates at the moment are not showing that everybody's going flat out. And the way that the group dynamics are here on MyWhoosh, you can see that this group is just rolling around and rotating. And they're coming up to the top here, but it starts to level out. And when it starts to level out, that's where I'll be really kicking over the top here and stretching it.
That Category 3 pack's got 10 riders in it at the moment. Now, any one of those could be looking at each other and thinking, who's going to push on this climb now? Or are all 10 of us going to go over together and take the run into the finish? Now, I say that as we are watching, and I think we've got a bit of a push here, but no, the decision to sit up has been made. So Rabaudo in 1, Walkenhurst in 2 on that pack of Category 3 riders.
And one of the things that can happen, of course, is that the riders have been pushing really, really hard earlier on in the climb on the very first part, because that's very temptation is you hit this climb, you go straight away. But if you can hold on a little bit longer, let people just burn themselves out a little bit and then kick on a later section of the climb, actually you can do more damage.
Well, to be honest, the top part of this climb kicks at 12% and then goes up to 16%, and that's in the last sort of 800 meters. Now, given those gradients at the top of the climb, you can put some time and distance in right at the very top, and we've seen it before where it is someone in the latter stages of this climb absolutely push. But that Category 3 group is so strong. We've got the Category 2 group as well on the screen at the moment, and that is a large pack of green jersey, whereas the Category 1 pack is the largest at the moment, but they are yet to get into the steeper sections of the climb. They are literally in the foothills at the moment. The main climb doesn't start till 15.3 kilometers. They've got around 200 meters still to go, and this pack are now the last group of riders coming into that steeper gradient. And take a look at that. That indeed is the red banner, polka dot banner, indicating the start of the climb, and our Category 1 leading pack of women on the road today are now about to go skywards.
So here we go. This is where we expect to see the climbers come to the fore, and the dynamics are definitely for me different between categories 4, 3, 2 and 1. Category 1, there is an onus that we expect them to be more aggressive, that we expect to see them, because when they're resting, they're laid back a bit more, and when they're going for it, we should be seeing big numbers.
Well, yes and no, because it doesn't always, we always say, Matt, never make an assumption. Never look at a course map and assume you know how the racing is going to go. Never make an assumption that what you think is going to happen is. And as a rider, you need to be able to respond to what's happening around you in a race. You can't just have one plan. You need alternatives in your head, and you need to be flexible enough to respond. You need to know your own strengths, and you need to know your competitors. And these women in Category 1 race week in, week out with each other. They know who is strong on the climbs. They know who has a phenomenal sprint. I'd never want to take Quevedo into a finish line sprint with me because
sure.
I tell you what, she has got some phenomenal kick on her. Now, me personally, I'm more of a time trialist. I can sit and hold a pace and a heart rate for a very, very long time. I know that's my skill set. These riders know what their skill set is, and this is about using it to the best of their ability.
Well, let's see who's going to be able to do that. Who's going to be able to take this on? Who will be able to take this clear? Now's the time for our riders to show what they've got.
Yeah, absolutely. And currently what they've got is a very large pack of riders all on the road at the moment. So we are in with Quevedo at the moment. This pack are moving at around 3.5 watts per kilo to 4 watts per kilo at the moment, which is a good pace now that they're coming into this climb. So currently 4.8% gradient and just moving up to 5. So this pack now well and truly on the climb.
So let's see what's going to happen when we hit those slopes. Let's have a look at this course profile again, Emma. We're on this climb, and you can see this first. It's a little kick. It rises, and it's a steeper kick. And we've got this platform at 1/3 of the height, then a shorter platform 2/3 of the way up, and then the steep slopes at the top. It's not exactly the same on the way down, and actually on the way down that means it's going to be even quicker, doesn't it? Because you don't have that leveling off. There is a leveling, but it's nowhere near as long, and it shouldn't scrub as much of the speed off the riders. So you've got to be in this group over the top. Key moments on this climb, if you had to pick 2 key places to be at the front on the climb, where would they be?
Well, I think the first kicker, so the first rise onto that first platform, is really important. I think I'm going to go for 3 places. So the first kicker, towards the very top of the climb, is absolutely crucial because that is a really steep section. And then that rollover, because gaps that are around 3, 4, 5 seconds as you transition from the top to the downhill will only exacerbate on the way down.
Indeed, I don't think that's a bad shout whatsoever. And for me, it's key who is in which group, who's in which part of the group, and where, and how many there are in each group. Now, Category 2, they are well on the way through this climb. They're not at the top, but they have traversed on the big step. So they've done the first third of the climb. They've traversed the big step. That's step number 1. They're leveling off. That you can just see there's a slight rise above. Meanwhile, on the way in towards that step are Category 1 on the left-hand side of your screen. That distance between the riders, well, it's still there, and it's still reasonably substantial. And one of the reasons that we talk about that is, of course, when those groups come together is going to be key, because if the group comes together on the downhill, it could well be that we are going to see the Category 2 and Category 1 together all the way to the finishing line, and that will change those numbers and the dynamics of that.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, because taking a look at this, so Category 1 and Category 2 are our most experienced racers here. And very, very strong racers as well, and very technically sound and tactically sound as well. And indeed, this pack all together in Category 2 and a large pack together in Category 1, leaving it until the latter stages of this climb if they are going to attack, or making the choice that they keep losing riders off the back of the group keeps getting smaller, but they will be taking a group into the finish line today.
Well, it's all going to depend on what they want out of this, how they want to play this. And you're talking about, it's all going to change. I mean, no battle plan survives the first contact with the enemy, and whatever game plan you have here, it's true. But it's the same when you plan your bike race, isn't it? And you just said not that long ago that the way that you plan your bike race, you plan your attack, you plan where you're going to be. and you're going to be in there, and then it's not, you know.
So-
and let's face it could be just because there's a rogue jumps out in front of you.
It's absolutely true, isn't it? And you know, you never assume what, even when you think is going to happen. I can very much vividly remember a cyclocross race where I thought it was going to be green, muddy and slippy. I got to the start line, and about 3 seconds before the commissaire's whistle went to indicate the go, a snowstorm came down, and the race took part in an absolute snowstorm. And by the end of the race, there was about 2 inches of snow on the ground.
5 centimetres for those people who work in metric.
Well, there you go. So never think what you're going to get, even if you've done a practice lap in real life.
I don't think
it's actually going to happen.
If anybody's riding on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race
They're not
Club
gonna...
right now in snow outside the window, please do send that picture to Emma at Biking Emma, and make sure you tag in MyWhoosh, something along the lines of "Dear at MyWhoosh and at Biking Emma, I have been riding the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club with snow outside my window." No photoshopping either. That's definitely a massive cheat.
Yeah, absolutely. So Salazar here at the moment, the rider pushing on in this Category 4 race. But take a look at that. The push from Bulgarin and Bernat have been brought back as they've Category 4 riders have moved through this climb. So Salazar now leading the group, and it is indeed a group. So Salazar, Bulgarin, Barco, Ossa, Bernat, the 4 riders in your shot at the moment. A little bit further back, but not hugely further back, is Catania and Ferrero. So some riders in that Category 4 race, but constantly changing places. So back in Category 1, Santiago is the rider who has pushed on, and take a look at this. She's pushed on the flat section, not on the climb. So Santiago pushing on, Quevedo giving chase, Barco 3 seconds back, Jose Valdez and Fua are the riders watching this at the moment. But this attack coming on the flat section, the transition between the first part of the climb and the second part of this Category 2 climb. Santiago now at 5.9 watts per kilo, continuing to push on. Quevedo on the wheel. Look at that. We've got a big kick coming from the pack behind. We've got rider here, Bulgarin is the rider pushing on to close the gap, and she's bringing the pack with her behind. Morales, Vergara, Moreno, Sanchez, Marin, Carvajal, all in there at the moment. This pack all pulling back together, so that attack there has indeed not paid off. But an interesting tactic, attacking not on the climb, but on the flat transition section.
Yeah, that big push through there. Absolutely love that. And you can see Quevedo kicks, uses that power. She knows that when she's on the flank, puts the power, she can get across the gap like that. She does that. And all of a sudden, it's like the sirens went off to, you know, like it's warning.
I'm not surprised.
Sirens,
look at the alligators
flying across the side. Never seen an alligator on a hill.
I was about to say, is it a crocodile?
Yeah,
or
it is. Come on, get your natural history.
Have I got
natural history right?
Okay.
It's alligators in America.
Okay,
A for America.
crocodiles in.
Yeah, and they can be saltwater crocodiles, really big crocodiles. Anyway,
I'll tell you
enough
what,
of the crocodiles.
I'd attack on a climb if a crocodile was riding alongside of me.
Is that the only way we're going to get you to sprint? I don't know. We'll see. So as we go up onto the climb, another move going off the front here, and we're just seeing an attack. One rider starting to go clear. Is this going to be one of our big climbing superstars going for it here? Because this is an interesting move. Look at the gap that's being opened up on the Quevedo, and you can just see at the moment it's Carvajal who has gone for this, who is starting to stretch out the gap. 9 seconds in the space of about half a kilometre here, and this is a really big move. And behind, now we start to see the response. Sanchez coming. We know Jenny Sanchez can climb. She's one of our strong riders, and look at the group behind. This is reminiscent of those big classic tour stages where you get on the climb, where there's an attack, and all of a sudden the group are found wanting, and they stretch out, and you can see everybody behind having to respond. They're dancing to the tune that is being set by Sanchez and by Carvajal.
Well, absolutely, and this has been a large group of over 20 riders in this Category 1 race, so easy to miss something because riders can see what we can see on our screens at the moment. So Carvajal launching an attack there, currently sat at 6 watts per kilo on this climb. She's just gone past Ruiz, one of our Category 2 riders. Jenny Sanchez Sanchez is still leading the charge from behind with Karuk, Quevedo, Maria Marin. Daniela Marin is in there as well. So is Catherine Fua. But it's 15 seconds back now. Carvajal has put in that kick and she continues to climb the gradient over 14% at the moment. It is absolutely rocketing as we drop in with Morgane Olsen.
Now, Olsen at the moment off the front of this group. They are on to the real steep. So you can see in the background, the Australian plane just disappearing off in behind the riders. And at the moment, behind Olsen is the rest of the front of the race, because Olsen has the gap. Now, if you look at the names that are chasing, Dega Mashani and Tico in there. Chanelli is in there. Van Velden looks like she's in. Hermansen. It really is a who's who, but this is Olsen setting the pace, and this means that she's riding at her pace, and the rest of the riders, if they follow her pace, are not necessarily riding at their optimum pace, and that is where you do the damage, because everybody's slightly different, and the more you can make it your race and not somebody else's race, particularly on this critical part, 12.5%, this is where it's key.
Well, for me, Matt, this is still going to be a Category 2 sprint for the finish on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. These riders all together here, there's only 1, 2 or 3 seconds. And the class in this Category 2 field, you know, I'm looking at this list and there's at least 7 riders here who could win this race today.
Well, let's see if it's going to be one of the 7 that Emma reckons is in this leading group. We won't get her to jump off the fence too early today. No, not one to commit far too early. Are you, Emma?
I think I called the sprint in Category 2 off the start line. But taking a look back at Category 1, you know, they're now under a kilometre behind the leading group in Category 2, and the group is all still together here at the moment. So the group may be smaller, but it's still a strong group in Category 1 as they climb this mountain. Category 2, just a kilometre further down the road. Category 3, not much further in front of Category 2, and I think the leaders in Category 2 will very shortly be seeing the leaders in Category 3. Category 3 very shortly catching the leaders in Category 4, but it is indeed Category 4 who have just gone over the top of the climb. So Category 4, our first group of riders over the top of this Category 2 climb, and it's Wendy Salazar leading the group through.
So Salazar is who's going to come in to the descent first. She goes over the top. You can see that gradient leveling, and now the scramble is to get into the wheels and get into a group quick. If you can format a group of 4 or 5 riders here, we think probably Emma says at least 3. I think you want 6 or 7 ideally probably in this group, but we'll see. Tanya Howeiler in 6th place is 8 seconds down at the moment. And that might be a gap too far. Catania is at 11 seconds, but this means that Salazar, Bernard, Pagarin, all at the front. Those are 3 riders. Looks like they've also got Barco also with them. Yeah, Ferreira with them. That would make a quick group of 5. That's going to be pretty close to optimum, and it means that Bernard Salazar can take the seat. But remember, this is also about making sure everybody else who does come up to you has put the effort in. You don't want them resting and coming back to you.
Well, take a look. Salazar asking Bernard to take a turn on the front. She wants to throw an off this on the descent and not let that group catch. But I think they're going to now. Taking a look into this Category 3 race, it's Rabauda. We saw her pushing on earlier on. She's still pushing on now. But she split this group, but
they're right not at the top.
Yeah,
I mean, they're coming over the top.
They are
this
indeed.
Is a big catch. Through that climb, they were closing down. They're closing time down, and they have really closed time down. They've come over the top, and this is a group that are together as well. This is going to surely be the race-winning group. The move made by Rabaudo is pulled clear a number of riders. That has got to be the group in category number 3 that is going to produce the win. But look at category number 2 on the left-hand side of your screen. They're also coming up to the top of the climb here. Remember, the banner is just below the summit. It continues onwards. Olsen goes up over the top of that climb in the lead. But again, this is a bit of a monster of a group. It's a lot more than 6. I think Emma busy trying to get some data on exactly how many riders are over the top.
So I'm I'm reckoning our Category 3 group is 5 riders with 1 just off the pace. I think that'll end up being 6. Our Category 2 group going over the top there, 7 riders in contention there in Category 2.
Wow, really interesting times on that climb as well, because we saw a lot of the riders coming in very, very close together. But when they came in together, it wasn't really showing what was happening in the racing. And that group, potentially, there's 9 riders almost on a very similar time in Category 2 over the top. But because of where they were coming in, that's really changed things over. In Category 3 and 4, again, very fast. Now, the climb times for Category 4, 25 minutes 22 seconds. For Category 3, the fastest climb time, that was Montoya, 22:34. The fastest climb time in Category 2, though, 19 minutes 58 seconds. That is absolutely blisteringly quick, and that is why all these 3 groups are coming back together. Category 1, well, they are not that far off the summit as well.
No, they're not at all, and there's still a large number of riders here in this Category 1 pack, so I think we're going to see a group go over the top as well. So just to recap, Category 4, we've got 4 riders in the leading group. Category 3, we've got 6 riders in the leading group. Category 2, 7 riders in the leading group. Now, all 3 of those race categories on the descent as our Category 1 pack head towards the top of this Category 2 climb.
Well, we saw those moves being made as it came over the top. That final push is really instrumental. At the moment, Carvajal has 13 seconds. This is not a huge gap. And I think for me, if I was Carvajal, I would be getting some extra rest on the top here. She doesn't, I think, have much of a chance of carrying that solo lead to the finish, given the dynamics of aerodynamics, given the dynamics of the pack and how they will respond, the way that they are going to have more rest because there's more in that group, and because the dynamics that this is a huge group.
Well, there's more than 11 riders in this chasing group behind Carvajal, so 11 versus 1. My money's on the 11.
Yeah, no matter how good a rider you are, you're going to have to pull out something really special to hold off 11 on a massive descent with 13 seconds. And it means Carvajal now has to play this smart. She went and she's put the tactic in. She's ridden up the climb at a pace. She's pushed on. She will have done some damage. And you can see the squeeze just coming in this group now as they come up towards the top of the climb here. And it looks like Jenny Sanchez, who is the rider who responded, remember, to that attack by Carvajal earlier on down in the slopes, is the one who's going to push and try and get across this group. So Carvajal's time, we said that it was 19:58 for Olsen, the fastest time in Category 2. The fastest time in Category 1, 17 minutes 59, breaking the 18-minute barrier for the climb. That is Milena Carvajal. That is seriously quick. And here we go. They're up on your screen. Carvajal's time, 17:59.567, squeaking underneath the 18-minute marker for that climb. That is a really quick time up there. But look at that group behind. It's big. It's got a lot of very big names, and it's got some people who we know are absolutely class. I mean, Catherine Fuhr in here, Maria Marin. You've got riders who are very, very dangerous in a sprint. I mean, Karut Quevedo. We now know we've got Quevedo in the chasing group behind Carvajal. Surely she's now the marked rider as the big favourite.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Carvajal now 12 seconds clear of the group behind. And can she hold that to the finish line? It's 14.25 kilometres to the finish line from the top of this Category 2 climb.
And I think the only way she's got a chance, and it is actually a chance, is if there is indecision in the group behind, because it's so big.
Well,
and you've got a very, very good sprinter in there in Karut Quevedo. Because of that, that then means nobody's going to want to tow Quevedo to the line. They're all going to sit off. Karut Quevedo, who we're in with now, could be left to do all the work. And whilst all these politics and all this argy-bargies. Argy-bargy. It's an old English phrase, a bit like whittling. There you go. Whilst that's going on, that is giving a little bit of respite to Carvajal at the front, because Carvajal then can take advantage of this. She was really pushing. 5.3 watts per kilo were coming out from Carvajal as she was in that descent, and she's got a chance. She's got to make the most of this. You know, she's putting that effort on the climb. She's gone for this, and if she can keep on going, if the rest of the group hesitate, because there are so many people, it might mean that she has a chance. But I think it is a very slim one.
Well, while the Category 1 leader may have a slim chance of carrying it to the finish line, in Category 4, they're 5 kilometres further down the road, and Burnett is the rider who's stretching the group here. So Burnett just clear now of the group, a few seconds. Ferrero, Salazar, Barco, Ossa, Pellegrin, Huela are all the riders in the chase group behind. But the Category 4 riders, who were the first riders out of the start pens today, are still the leading group on the road at the moment.
They are indeed, and I tell you something, that's a great move by Burnett. We've watched Burnett really progress as a rider in terms of her tactics, in terms of how she thinks on races. Brilliant to see, but not so good to see. It is Carvajal being
11 versus 1
here. It is indeed 11 versus 1, and despite that big push, they really did get their act together there, didn't they? The chasing group. And this is a big pack, and they should sweep a lot of the riders up there at 23.8k. Remember, we've got to get to 35k. But in terms of difficulty from here to the finish, the only difficult thing is keeping focused and not losing a wheel.
Well, you know, and the finish here today is an interesting one because it's flat. There's a small climb, there's a small drop, and then there's a flat run-in. So it is a little technical, but it is going to be about getting your timing right in that sprint finish.
So let's see who's going to take this out. They're on the way into the finish.
Yeah, they are indeed on the way into the finish, but there's still some way to go because the finish today is at 35 kilometres, and we are watching Ella Vink at the moment. She's currently in 8th place in that Category 4 race, but this is the leaders in the Category 3 race, and they are about to sweep her up now. Vink indeed putting a bit of a kick in here to maintain a position in this Category 1 group. She's going to join Melina, Ribaldo, Walkenhurst, Acevedo, who are all in this leading Category 3 group, and she's going to stay with them now and try and stay with them, I would imagine, right to the finish. So the leading pack in the Category 4 race are around 50 seconds down the road from this leading Category 3 bunch. And you can see that now. We've got Burnett, the leader in the Category 4 race. She's currently the leader on the road at the moment. She is coming up for 29 kilometres now into this 35-kilometre race. So 6 kilometres now to go for Burnett. Now, the group are not particularly a long way back. That, to me, is looking like around 700 metres. Behind Burnett is the leading group in the Category 3 race. So whilst Category 3 and Category 4 look as though they're starting to come together, Category 2 are not that much further behind. So I think we are going to start to see Category 4, Category 3 and Category 2 all start to come together now in these latter stages of the race. Now, this pack of Category 2 riders, we said earlier on that there are a number of riders in this group who could win this race today, and it was highly likely it was going to be a sprint finish. But Sinelli is here with Antico, Reynard, Manshandi, Sinelli, Van der Velden, Fioroni, Hermansen and Parrott. Well, Hermansen and Parrott, it is looking like have been gapped from the group. Indeed, Fioroni is looking like she's around 18 seconds back. So Fioroni not making the cut here today. Neither has Hermansen. Now, this group of Category 2 riders pushing on strongly. Very shortly, I think they are going to start to see that Category 3 and Category 4 leading groups down the road in front of them, because Carmona, one of our Category 3 riders in that leading pack, now 40 seconds down the road. Just 40 seconds now between our Category 3 and Category 2 leading women today. So as Category 3, Category 2 and Category 4 all look to be coming together now with around 5 to 6 kilometres left in this race today, our Category 1 riders are about 1.5 kilometres behind, and this group is still going strong. So Santiago, Sanchez, Vergara, Maria Marin, Daniela Marin, Cavado is in here too. It's a large pack of Category 1 riders still together and riding hard as Santiago puts another little dig in at the front here. They are around 27.5 kilometres into this race with 53 minutes of racing now done, but the group is still together.
Yeah, come on, Maria. This is where we want that dig. This is the only way to stop a sprinter taking this out, is to make them work hard. Take turns to have a dig off the front. Remember, our riders on MyWhoosh can talk to each other. If you are on a team, the communications are discreet to the team. If you're individuals, the whole of the race field can hear you. So if you want to get the guys moving, now is the time to talk and say, if you're going to put in the attack, if you're going to talk to your teams, this is where you've got to do it. This is how to really make the sprinters have a tough time. Attack, kick, sit there and be a passenger to the finish only works for the big sprinters. If you're confident in your power, that's the way to do it. And this is what we love to see. Santiago, we've just seen 6 watts per kilo, and Cavado is having to respond. She's up at the front, she's with Fua, she's having to do the work. And this is how you're going to tire the legs out of a big sprinter. You basically make them work in. Someone who's got that amazing snap, I don't possess, as you can tell by the bitterness in my voice. That instant kick, I might be able to put my big power, but I can't get that instant snap. And that's what makes a really good sprinter, to go from nothing to 15 watts per kilo, 20 watts per kilo in a fraction of a second. And that is what gives you that race-winning kick. But if you don't necessarily have that, you can take the battle to the riders, and that's great to see here. Great riding by Santiago there, and who's going to take the next turn?
Well, I'm counting over 11 riders in that leading group in that Category 1 race. But what we're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen is Category 3 and Category 4 leaders all together now with around 4.3 kilometres to go.
So this is that important run in now. Remember, we still have 4K, 4 kilometers, 4,000 meters, and that tricky technical finish. That rise, that fall, and then the run to the line. And it's a quick run into our finish. And this is about getting your timing right. So the riders are going to need to be watching the clock as well on the way through. With Category 4 and Category 3 together as groups, chasing our Category 4 leader on the right of your screen, it is allowing the riders in Category 4 who can stay with Category 3 riders a chance, and it is only a chance of pulling back Diane Grace Burnett, because Diane Grace Burnett today has been the brave rider who's gone clear. She now has to make it stick. She's got to keep on pushing. Wow, this is key for me, Emma.
She's got a hard job, I think, because take a look at that charging Category 3 pack behind. They've got Category 4 riders in there as well. And I think this is going to be a really difficult job for Burnett to stay clear. She's about 500 metres, 600 metres up the road from that group, but that group are motoring. So Burnett is going to have to keep the pedal to the metal to absolutely continue to keep that lead established.
She is. It's such. It could be an agonizing. It could be one of those horrible moments where the leader gets caught on the line syndrome. Wow. But I tell you something, she's doing a great job here. She's really working hard. 176 beats per minute from Diane Grace Burnett. Nice revs there, sitting at 73, using some power here because she's just hitting this little bit of a drag, and all these drags are working in her favor. Whilst it's hurting her, she has to be aware that obviously when it goes uphill, the speed comes off, the aerodynamic draft effect comes down. That's when the group doesn't get as much advantage. That gap is still just about holding. So this is where, and I'm going to be biased here because we have an aggressive rider who's gone on the attack, who's been brave. Come on, This is where it counts down. This is where you got to dig in. Make sure it counts on this climb. Push it over the top and keep that pace there. You know what you're doing here. Keep it. Get it to the finish.
Well,
I love an aggressive attacking rider.
We know she's on form because she won the May final last week. So she's just carrying that form over into today's race. On the left-hand side of your screen, this is the leading group in the Category 1 race. They're coming up for the 30-kilometre mark, 57 minutes of racing. There's 11 riders at my count in this group at the moment with 5 kilometres to go.
Yeah, into that last 5K. It is always a key moment. It's just something about knowing that you're at 5K. You know that you're coming into that wind in to the finish. Then for me, 4 is just a non-number, but 3 really critical. Then 1K, then 200 meters to go, of course, is where you know that at that point, you've got to be giving it absolutely everything, no matter whether it's uphill, downhill, sideways, on your backside as you go over the line. It has been done by certain riders before, but this is all about this push to the line now. They've really got to keep the pace high enough to stop somebody attacking and going clear if you want this to come down to a sprint. But equally, if you are a rider who doesn't want it to come to a sprint, you need to now be working your way, coming off the back, laying off the group, diving through the group, using the draft and getting out the front and making everybody respond. Because if that is your chance, that's the way you're going to make it work. You've just got to do it again and again and again.
Well, taking a look at this group of riders, they're tightly packed on the road at the moment, and the pace is not particularly high. Currently set at around 2.5 to 3 watts per kilo, and we've got one Category 4 rider in there as well, indicating that the pace is really off that Category 1 group. Now, the pace is not off this Category 2 group because it's Antico and Olsen attacking on this climb. Reynard is here as well because this is an opportunity to break this group. It's a large group of riders. We said 7 riders in this group at the moment. 5 top 5 positions in the prize money today. Olsen and Antico attacking. Reynard is here as well. And this pack are continuing to move.
Yeah, I think they may even have picked up a couple of more riders on the way through. I think maybe gone up to 9 riders there, Emma, on the way down there, because I'm seeing, I think, more than that. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've got Olsen and Antico really taking turns to have a dig on the front here. Degum and Shandy responding. Reynard is responding. And they are starting to lose riders off the back of the group. This is starting to split once again. They're at 33.1K. This is a critical move now. This is a gamble. They're rolling the dice here, and they need to now push. You've got to make this count. You put an attack in, you've got to finish it off. It's no good just letting it roll. We're not far from the finish here.
We're not,
this has got to count.
You know what? The gradient mat is not working to their advantage because it's literally rolling now. So whilst that might have been a climb, it very quickly transitions to a flat and a downhill. And the group have concertinaed back together again. So the work done by Antico and Sinelli, they're not paying off because the group's still together.
So 4 riders, 4 categories on the road on your screen. You've got Category 4 leader right-hand side of your screen coming into the last 750 metres. You've got just over 1,200 metres to go for Category 3 leaders. That is currently Walkenhurst. Then you've got Category 2 top right-hand side. They're coming up for 1.2K to go. And we are into the last 3K for Category 1. But let's focus on Category 4. Diane Grace Burnett has gone for this. Now, the chasing group have got to move, and they've got to move now. It looks like it's Ferrara who's gone in pursuit. She's broken clear of Salazar, Pugarin, Baco Ossa, of Fink, and has the gap here. 5 riders clear of Fink at the moment. Those are the 5 prize money slots in theory, but look at this finish. This is the first time we're going to get a look this week in this qualifier at the finish, and this is really tricky. Long run in. Diane Grace Burnett knows where that finish line is. She is going to wind it round this corner, and she's going to see the banner. It's virtually invisible to you. You've done the turn, and it is right on top of you. It's going to be Diane Grace Burnett, your winner. First rider over the line and winner of Category 4 in qualifier number 1. What a ride. It's going to be a second place. This is how close it came. Laura Ferraro chasing all the way in. She's going to take second place in Category 4, but I think it's going to be a sprint for that third place.
There is indeed, and Barco Ossa has kicked, and she's kicked hard. I think she's gone over the top of Polgarin and Salazar as the sprint is now on in Category 3. Montoya, Walkenhurst, Rebaudo, Carmona, all pushing, but I think that's Walkenhurst who has taken the Category 3 win as we see Ella Vink and Katana come in as Category 2 come round the corner. Sinelli and Reynard and Olsen with Antico are kicking Sinelli, but Reynard, I think, gets that one as well. Sprint after sprint after sprint.
Okay, let's sum that up for you, or try to. So, Category 4, Berner in 1, Ferraro in 2, Baco Ossa in 3. In Category 3, you can see them on your screen there. It is Montoya in 3, Carmona in 2, Walkenhurst taking the victory. In Category 2, Antico in 3rd, Cinelli in 2nd, and Reynard taking the victory with that kick into the line. Remember, all these results are live. They're available on mywhoosh.com/results. They will become unofficial when all the riders finish them at the end of the race. And then, of course, they will need to be verified. That process starting before the riders hit the gates and finishing after the riders are finished and all of the data has been checked, assessed and verified. So we have one more category leader to crown a winner. The question will be, who will it be? This is the leading group at the moment. This is Category 1. They haven't caught the rest of the categories. They still have 1.6 kilometers to go. They have got riders in front, but they are all riders in Categories 2, 3, and 4 now. So we have decision time for the riders. Where do they go for this? Can they go for this, or do they save their energy for a sprint?
Well, taking a look at the size of this group at the moment, you know, I think this is going to be a sprint to the line because this is a very steady pace at the moment, currently rolling around 3 watts per kilo in this group, and we've got a really class field here. So 3, 6, 9, 10 riders, I think I'm counting here in this group. And the riders in here all moving through, coming up for 1 kilometer to go. So I think it might be time to put my money on the line. I think this is going to be a sprint.
Oh, that was a safe bet, wasn't it?
Well, I'd love to see a really brave rider go off the front now and take that away.
So, well, for me, what's going to be key is, where do you start this sprint? We've got that long straight in. It's a long, long way. It's very deceptive, very hard to judge distance. Going to need to use the clock, top left-hand side of the rider's screen, to see where you put that sprint in. Do you start it early? Do you start it late? How late can you leave it? Bearing in mind, you can't see that finishing line.
Well, I tell you, this is a slow ride from this Category 1 group, because last time we were on this course, it was a 62-minute winning time. It's currently at 65 minutes, and we're not there yet. But the pace starting to wind up now as we do this run into the finish. But everybody here capable of holding on for the last 600 metres.
And Fura is who's winding this up on the front of the group, really starting to push, but look at them, they're snowballing over the top. They're really starting to wind. We're now at 6.6 of a K, 400 meters. This is the long straight. The finish is round the left-hand bend. This is the group, and it's one big stretch at the moment. They're all together.
They are indeed all together and all across the road. That bend up in front of them is where they're going to see the line, but Jose Valdez is there. Moreno is kicked. Fura's gone at 11 watts per kilo. We've got Carvajal and Marin, Moreno and Quevedo is on the front at the moment, but who's going to take it? I think it's Santiago from Marin. But we are going to have to take a look at those results. It is indeed Santiago from Marin, from Castano, from Vergara, from Sanchez, Jose Valdez, Maria Marin, Catherine Fua takes 8th, Liliana Moreno 9th, and Milena Carvajal rounding out the top 10. But take a look at that. 11 riders in that Category 1 sprint in 0.7 of a second.
Amazing race finished there in Category 1, and Quevedo went from 1st to 11th in the space of a few seconds, quite simply because that is how close it came at the finish. So last time we were here, we saw 6 riders sprinting it out. We saw 11 here It's absolutely corking, because absolutely love it. It's been an absolute pleasure putting words to the action for qualifier race number 1. You can find me online, and please do get in touch. It's at Matt Fix Pain. Emma, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me at Biking Emma on Instagram.
And don't forget, we are going to be back very shortly with the men's race. Please do make sure you give us a watch, whether that's on Twitch TV or, of course, on the YouTube channel. Give it a subscribe. Make sure you click on to MyWhoosh. Follow MyWhoosh on social media. It's MyWhoosh across pretty much all the channels. My_whoosh on Twitter. And don't forget, of course, jump on. Get a ride, download the app, available on iOS, on Windows, as well, of course, on any platform. Just make sure you get on, come and have a ride with us. We'd love to see you there. So from myself, Matt Payne, from Emma Martin, from the amazing team behind the scenes, stay safe. We'll see you again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.